Pro Tem Investigative Colleagues, having listened to the reading of the House Reverse Bill number 22 and 23, numbers 22 and 23, entitled Act to amend the executive law establishing the National Social Security and Welfare Corporation and the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection, and to add to include thereof the Establishment Act to establish the National Commission for the Elderly of the Republic of Liberia. I move that since this is the second reading, that the revised bill be received and that copies are made and circulated to all senators, and that same be forwarded to the committees on Social Security, Committee on Public Operations and Judiciary to add thereupon and report to plenary in 2 weeks.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that since this is the second reading, copies for the act be made for all senators and that be sent to the Committee on Gender and the Committee on Judiciary to report to plenary. How long? 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. Are you ready to vote?
All right.
Are you ready, Senator Jalloh?
Thank you. I will be ready to vote if the movement will accept this amendment that we reconvene this special session to handle some particular issues. And because of time and probably this matter, this issue is not an extreme urgency, I will be ready to vote if the movement will agree that the committees so designated report upon our resumption to regular session in January.
I pray that
As you can, yeah. Everybody hold it so don't say no more.
Yes, objection withdrawn.
Is there 2 heads better than 1? Or 2 wild heads, not just any 2 heads. So how we have the consultation to job on readiness. But we apply for bomb.
with them already next year we take a vote.
Your former boss.
All those in favor of the motion as stated by Senator Chair, make it known by raising your right hand. There's no vote. Eddie?
So no, we said you're not voting?
You already know you can
Eddie?
Take it serious, take it serious. I'm out there.
Against? Abstention?
What did you
Report?
Mr. President Pro Tem, distinguished senators, there are 12 senators in favor of the motion, none against, none abstain, not a total of 12. 12 in favor, none against, no, 1
Vote is
abstain.
unanimous, and so motion carried. Senator, that's our power. Next.
The second communication from the House. By Council, an act to award tax incentive of the Liberia Telecommunications Corporation, the telco as the government-owned entity.
Distinguished colleagues,
You have listened to the reading of an act to award tax incentives to the Liberia Telecommunications Corporation, the TECO, as a government-owned entity. Second reading. What is your will and pleasure? Distinguished colleagues, what is your will and pleasure? Senator Smith.
Mr. Presiding, distinguished senators, I move, if I can obtain a second, that the communication from the House of Representatives be received by this body, submitted to the relevant committee to report back to plenary upon our resumption in January.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill be received, submitted to the relevant committee to report upon our return in January. Are you ready to vote?
I'm ready.
Evidence of Senator Sir Joseph.
Mr. Presiding and fellow colleagues, maybe you call my home back. I'll be ready to vote, considering that this is Liberia owned property. We have given other companies tax incentive. This the government of Liberia and the people of Liberia will benefit. Considering this, I will be ready to vote. If my colleagues will consider that we'll be given 2 weeks.
Moving. Moving.
Honorable Presiding,
That is not complete.
the issue the chairman on the executive raised, as much it is important, we need more time to understand why they want tax it.
Why you can't compete?
So,
Governor, please announce the arrival of the President of the Liberia Senate and for contact His Excellency Dr. Mohamed Juldeh Jalloh, Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone.
Please have your seats. Your readiness, Senator Juldeh.
Yes, Madam President of the Senate, I will be ready to vote. Yeah, sorry. Madam President, I will be ready to vote if my colleague will consider this little amendment to his motion. And that amendment is that the request of the Liberia Telecommunications Corporation, as contained in the bill just read, being precise, we want to know exactly what are the items on which they will be seeking.
Debate, order. Debate, order.
My man, wait.
I can't wait. Order, madam.
You are not a resident. That's the person who made the motion, not you, Senator.
Order not accepted. Can we allow Senator Tito to land?
Thank you
and
very
then we'll
much.
take a
Now, let's
vote,
let
sir.
the procedure. So don't have a
Senator
secret.
Jalloh, will you complete your statement, please?
Thank you, President. Now, let me restate it because you interrupted me. Madam President, I will be ready to vote if my colleague will accept this amendment. And that amendment is that upon the return of the report that he is postponing to next year, let it be stated clearly in the, I mean, please, man.
Could we please let him land? We have special guests, please.
Thank you. That we want to know the precise things that will be bringing into the country for which they want these incentives. They can be left open. That's my only agenda I want to make. Now, that's the body agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you, President.
Is the movement accepting the amendment? Who's the movement? Do you accept the amendment by Senator Jalloh so that the precise tax issues that are being requested on this bill will be clearly delineated in the bill so that we'll have clarity? Do you accept it?
Yes.
Thank you.
With that amendment?
But with a clarity on
With that clarity on another clarity?
No, on the position of the son.
Can we please allow each other to speak? I want to hear from Senator Jalloh Smith.
I moved and I stated upon our return in January. But after debriefing from
Can you land, please? Order. Can we please be quiet? Can I hear from Senator Jalloh Smith to get a clarity on what he is saying?
President, decision has been made.
Senator Jalloh Smith, what was your? You have to accept the
Babulu,
amendment.
you just come in as a new county, so let hold on here strong. And so I have the reconsideration for the committee to report about the plenary.
The first issue is the amendment that Senator Jalloh has asked for, that the additional information on the tax that is being required be clearly stated. Do you accept that amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Already, let's. Senator Snow.
Madam President, distinguished colleagues. Madam President, distinguished colleagues. Madam President, I'll be ready to vote if the women can accept this amendment, that due to the importance of telecommunication in today's world, and that this issue has been read by all of us, we'll be ready to vote if the women can accept that it goes to committee room, and that the committee report to this plenary in 2 weeks.
He has a right to restate his motion. Mr. Movement, do you agree? Do you accept or reject the amendment being proffered by Senator Snow?
Yes, sir.
After debriefing, I accept.
If there are no other amendments to this motion, are you not ready to vote?
Ready.
Make it known by show of your right hand, please.
Why were you allowed to be?
Senator from Babolu County, are you voting?
I'm not voting.
Yes, please remain quiet, please. Those against?
You were known, man. You were known.
And those abstaining? Babolu County and River G.
All those again, they vote on matter to the table.
Senator Jalloh, I will find you.
And a law. And come to the public. They will hold it there.
Thank you.
Can I get the count of the vote, please?
Madam President of the Senate, distinguished senators, the result. 13 senators in favor of the motion, 1 against and 2 abstention.
1 against,
2 against, Senator Sherman and Senator Jalloh. And then 2 against, 2 abstain. We have a total of 7 votes. Motion carried. Good morning, distinguished senators. I have the honor this morning to invite His Excellency, the Vice President of Sierra Leone, Honorable Mohamed Juldeh Jalloh, who's been visiting our country since last Friday. I want to thank Honorable Snow for going all the way to the border to pick him up and drive him into the country. He's been engaged with quite a lot. We're trying to find out how we can strengthen the relationships between Liberia and Sierra Leone, so that some of the positive things we're doing in Sierra Leone, we can also piggyback off of it. And so I didn't want him to leave Liberia before getting a chance to speak to the Senate. I want to thank the Pro Tem and the leadership for allowing him to make some presentation to you, and hopefully we'll begin a new page of real engagements as we should be doing in the manner we were doing. So, Your Excellency, thank you so much for taking time of your busy schedule to meet with us. We'll now take your presentations, please. Is that mic working? Yeah.
Mr. President, hold it down a little bit. Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, Honorable Senators, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first, I want to use this opportunity to thank His Excellency, the President, Dr. George Weah, and the Vice President and the government and people of Liberia for the tremendous reception that has been accorded to my delegation since I arrived here on Friday. I had several meetings. I had the opportunity to meet the Vice President. We discussed a range of issues. And yesterday morning, I had the opportunity to have a very lengthy, thorough discussion with His Excellency, President George Weah. My visit here, like I told so many of our compatriots and interlocutors in Liberia, is a demonstration of the renewed relationship between Liberia and Sierra Leone. Why I use the word renewed? Because for the first time in the history of these two countries, you have two young leaders that have committed and systematically, progressively reiterated their commitment to strengthen bilateral relationship between the two countries. What we have been doing from our part in Sierra Leone over the years, when we came in, we realized that we had some serious fundamental challenges, both on the governance front as well as on the developmental front. His Excellency Dr. Julius Madabio put together a team of to help him deliver the right path to moving Sierra Leone out of poverty and put Sierra Leone on a track of development is to focus on human capital development. So as a government, we took 22% of our budget, we dedicated it to education. 22%. So today, for basic education, so declared free quality education. Today in Sierra Leone, we have about 2.6 million kids in school. The government is paying fees for them, buying learning and teaching materials, as well as supporting them with transportation. We bought school buses. In certain schools and certain communities that are really, really stressed communities, we even provide food for the kids that are going to school. In addition to that, we decided to separate the Ministry of Education into two. We have the Ministry of Basic Education and the Ministry of Higher and Technical Education. We did this essentially because we wanted to focus on basic education to improve quality and access, particularly, as His Excellency the President said, no Sierra Leonean kid, no matter what the origin, your origin and the economic status of your people, you have the opportunity to go to school. So we focused on separating the two ministries. So today in Sierra Leone we have two ministries of education, basic and higher education. In higher education also, what we tried to do was to progressively depoliticize university administration. Depoliticize university administration to allow the university to be competitive, so that we created additional universities, technical universities, to meet the socio-economic and development needs of our people, and then more importantly, allow the universities themselves to make a decision of how higher and technical education can pitch into the development of the country. The other area was health. In the area of health, when we came in, the budgetary allocation for the health sector was 6%. We raised it to 8% and later to 11.4%. Although we are still short by 3.5% below the Abuja Accord, the Abuja Declaration, which states that sub-Saharan African countries have to spend about 15% of their budget to health. But yet still, at 11.4%, we have been able to make massive gains in that sector. We recruited over 4,000 healthcare workers because we realized that human resource was a problem, so we focused on that. And today, in the last 2 years, we have been focusing essentially on maternal and infant health. So the indicators today clearly shows that we are making progress. We have got huge gains. It is as a result of that. Even in my office as Vice President, I have a unit that is focusing on health, where we are able to input directly, so that the Vice President office directly plays a key role in how we monitor from health policies to health outcomes. So today, that office enables me to have a clear insight into the Ministry of Health, so that we can be able to address issues around governance accountability system in the health sector, and then work directly with donor partners to see how to support the health sector. But that sector has suffered some serious shock in the last couple of months, because with COVID-19, as a government, we have expended resources. We spent additional resources that was meant for mainstream health sector to be able to respond to the pandemic. That is why Sierra Leone is among the 4 countries that the CDC have been declared, the WHO, that they have been managed the COVID-19 very well. And also today we are rethinking hospital management, because what we realize as a government is that you can put additional resources, but if you don't follow the health delivery chain, you will not be able to make an impact. So as a result of that, my unit within the ministry, we are able to work not only with donor partner, but the Ministry of Health, so that we can make assessment and policy input, so that at the end of the day, so today the biggest challenge now is hospital management. Because before in Sierra Leone, what we did, all health facilities in the region were under the district councils. We realized that the management was a little bit problematic. We looked into that, so now we are rethinking hospital management. That is why one of the areas from here, I'll be going to the Ministry of Health to see how here in Liberia they offer courses on hospital management. I've already been informed that there's somebody in Freetown from Liberia that is supporting us, to see how we can build and strengthen our relationship, so that if we can send Sierra Leoneans here to understand hospital management, so that at least we want to create an autonomous, effective management that is not only driven from above, but it has a very solid local content. Because at the end of the day, what you had in Sierra Leone is that you have a lot of doctors, medical doctors with very clinical expertise, that have decided to go into administration and abandon the clinical area. So some of these reforms we are doing to rethink hospital management is to see how to get medical doctors back to the field, and then essentially make the Ministry of Health a policy and a governance architecture, rather than being filled with that. The other area in the human capital development of Julius Malema is agriculture. Because we realize, as a small country like Sierra Leone, we spent around 2018, 2019, $520 million to import food into Sierra Leone, of which $240 million is only on rice. So we decided to establish a big program called the Rice Value Chain. Even in the meeting that His Excellency Julius Malema had with the head of IFC, Mr. Mokhtar Diop, the only thing we asked the International Finance Corporation is to support the rice value chain. What does that mean? It means in Sierra Leone today, you have 2 categories of farming going on. You have small-scale farming and large-scale farming. So we are encouraging investment into the food production chain. we are getting. Because of that, we created a new bill to allow private sector play a key role in agriculture. So we elaborated what we call the Agriculture Transformation Program 2020 to 2023 that will enable private sector to play a key role, and then more importantly, introduce mechanization. So for the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, we were able to buy about 400 tractors and machineries that were distributed across the country. But what we did was to depoliticize the management of these machineries and fertilizers. Before in Sierra Leone, tractors and fertilizers are distributed by politicians. So we decided to take the politicians out of the distribution chain and create regional hubs and give them to private sector so that they can increase access for people in the agriculture, so that farmers can have access to it. So at the end of the day, today we are expecting a very high yield in return when it comes to rice. But the greatest challenge we are faced with today is the post-harvest system. So we are putting additional resources to strengthen the post-harvest system, meaning that when people grow food, to have the opportunity to store those food, process them, and have access to market. That is the challenge we have at that end. And as a result of that, the government has created a special facility, which is a $50 million facility in the bank, with a lending rate of 6 to 7%, to allow people that are going to invest in food production to borrow those money and invest in machineries and invest in processing and storage facility. That is what we are doing for the human capital development. But we realize that today we don't want to make the mistakes that our independence father made in the 60s and the 70s, just to believe that governance is just about building roads, building schools, and building hospitals. That is the reason why the African state did very bad, and then we start to talk about the failure of the African state. So we decided also to focus our attention to the productive sector. Because if you don't generate money, you don't have money to spend in the social sector. So what we did for the productive sector is that we identified key ministries. First is the Ministry of Energy. The Ministry of Energy was getting huge amount of subsidy, because as politicians, you know, light is a very interesting political commodity. If you don't give light, no matter what, people will say you have not delivered anything. So you want to give light to the capital city, you want to give light. So as a result, the former government was subsidizing electricity at a rate that even goes beyond subsidizing education and health. So when we came in, we decided to make very good strategic choice, because His Excellency the President set up a team to look around it. So the focus was 3 in the energy sector. One was to progressively reduce subsidies so that we can look for alternative where we can be able to pay. We used to pay about 26 cents per kilowatt hour. So we had an arrangement to pay 16 cents with a Turkish ship that is there, that is have the capacity to produce up to 120 megawatt, but only we are using 60 megawatt during the dries and 20 megawatt during the rains, because we have a hydropower. When we took over, energy access in Sierra Leone was about like 16%. We have increased that to 24%, and we intend to increase that to 40% by 2023 and beyond. Because today, you know, we are part of the power pool, the West Africa Electrification Project, the TLSG, that is coming from Cote d'Ivoire through here. We are going to benefit 26 megawatt from that. But for now, we are taking 10 megawatt progressively. When we are able to build the regular transmission and distribution capacity, we can take the additional 16%. Our focus is to get the energy sector to a stage wherein we can transition from utility energy to productive energy. Because what you have today in Sierra Leone is that we produce electricity to just light schools, houses, and offices. But then we want to move to a productive sector. Because if you want to attract investment, if you want to encourage investment in agriculture, so that the post-harvest system can be viable, for processing and storage you need electricity. We have mining companies that have been depending on private power generation. We want to support those mining companies to be more competitive. Because if you have a mining company in your country that is spending millions of dollars to generate their own power supply, they will not be competitive in the international market, particularly in countries where people pay 4 cents, 5 cents per kilowatt hour to generate electricity. So that is why we are making a transition to productive energy and increase energy access to support food production, to support industrialization and all these areas. because already we have growing industries that are coming up. In the agricultural sector also, we are not only encouraging private sector to come into food production, but the government is going the extra mile to look for international resources for those private sectors to do food production. We have been engaging with the IFC, the International Financial Corporation. They have been very supportive. They are going to support us in the rice value chain. They are also supporting some private sector companies to build small industries, particularly onion plantation, Maggi cube, and other areas just to increase food production. Because the focus on food production is essentially more marked these days with the arrival of COVID. COVID have demonstrated that every country needs to build a national capacity for food production. Because today, if you look at the international freight charges, they have tremendously increased in the last couple of years. In countries like China, where people used to pay $4,200 to import, to transport a container to Sierra Leone, they pay about $16,000 today. So that has increased the prices of essential commodity. And the only way African countries can be able to manage that is to develop the capacity to increase food production. That is the focus, and our engagement with the IFC is essentially around that area, how to support private sector investment in agriculture, and more importantly, what do we do? Because we realize in terms of access, in terms of food production, that the infrastructure is critical. That is the road network. Because you have so many small-scale farmers that produce, but they don't have access to market. That is why even in the choice of constructing roads in Sierra Leone, His Excellency the President have decided that we are only going to construct roads that are developmental in nature, meaning roads that can open up trade, roads that can lead us to neighboring countries, because we want to create a trade-driven economy where we can produce and sell to our neighbors, and where what our neighbors produce that are cheap, we can sell. So this will eliminate all those international freight charges. So this is how we are intertwining both the energy sector and the food production sector. We have got a lot of resources. They are just recently, the DFC in the United States of America approved a $217 million grant, a $217 million loan to a private company, Millennium, to generate 83 megawatts. So already, as I'm talking to you, discussions are ongoing to build an LNG facility and infrastructure to support that, so that we can move from heavy fuel, fossil fuel, to LNG. That is what we are currently working on now. And also, we are now, for the past 3 years, we have been passing the MCC scorecard. The MCC scorecard, today we are eligible for a compact. We are elaborating a compact that is essentially a power compact. 90% of it is to invest in transmission and distribution, so that whatever energy capacity we are able to generate in the capital city will be in a position to be able to evacuate that to the region to support development, to support agro-processing and food production. So the money we are going to get from MCC is going to essentially be focused on that. And then we pass this scorecard. And the other areas in the productive sector we want to turn around is the fisheries industry, the fisheries sector, the fishery and marine. Sierra Leone produce a lot of fish, but because we don't have the capacity that is required, we don't get much out of it. So what we get from all the companies that are involved in marine and fishing is just licensing fees. But because Sierra Leone does not have the infrastructure in place, we don't get much from the exportation of fish. So what we are doing today, we are discussing with the Chinese government that are giving us a grant, plus an additional financing from government to build a fish harbor. That fish harbor will allow us to have a facility to process fish, so that when we re-export fish, we can not only get resources from licensing, but we are also going to get excise revenue from the re-exportation of fish. But that is one industry we are working on also to make it more productive. Although we have progressively increased the revenue base of that sector, we are yet to do more when we have the fishery industry. The other area is tourism. We realized that Sierra Leone was a tourist destination in the 70s and the 80s. But after the Civil War, it collapsed. We have been struggling to get people to go back to Sierra Leone so that at least we can expand. So we have decided to pass a lot of laws around making tourism competitive in Sierra Leone. one thing we did was to declare Sierra Leone a visa on arrival country, so that any citizen that wants to come to Sierra Leone, when you arrive at the airport, you get visa on arrival. This is essentially because Sierra Leone does not have the luxury of having foreign missions and embassies across the world. We are very limited in Europe. We don't exist in the Scandinavian countries. We don't have an embassy in Pakistan. So even when we are creating new embassies outside, we've created one in Morocco, we have created one in Turkey. We are looking to establish a stronger relationship with India. We are looking for countries that will facilitate trade, that will enable people to come to Sierra Leone easily. That is the reason why even in opening embassies, we are strategic in the sense that we are focusing more on the socio-economic gains that we are going to get from it, not only the soft gains. So the tourism sector has been one, because when we started doing very well, because we started to focus on what we call domestic tourism and also diaspora tourism. That is, make the tourism sector more competitive in a way that Sierra Leoneans and Africans outside, African Americans can come to Sierra Leone. We have been beginning to do very well, but when COVID came, it impacted greatly. As you all know, the hospitality industry collapsed. We could not get money from there. Even government had to support some of the social bills of the hospitality industry just to keep jobs. So the tourism is one critical area we have been. Beyond the productive sector, we are also been working very, very strongly in the governance realm. In the governance realm, meaning that because His Excellency has a manifesto where he wanted to improve gender empowerment, he wanted to improve girls' school retention rate. So we did a lot of laws to promote. As I'm talking to you now, the Parliament, our legislature is discussing the Gender Empowerment and Equality Bill. That is going to allow laws that will make not only appointive positions important for women, but also elective positions. So we are moving to a 30% quota to ensure that all elective positions in the country, you have 30% representation of women. That is something we are working on now, and that is something we have been able to do. And also we have been able to improve girls' access to schooling. So today at the basic education level, we have a parity. The number of girls and number of boys, we have increased that greatly. We have added about 6% of the Sierra Leonean population to schooling, which was not the case before. So these are some of the governance areas we have been able to work on. And also, as you know, His Excellency the President abolished the death penalty recently, and abolished the death penalty. We also abolished the libel laws against journalists, and all these are some of the soft gains, and including the fight against corruption. The fight against corruption, we have been making very important strides. Over the years, we have been progressively being rated. We started with a modest 74% score, we increased to 80-something%, and this year we are going to do more. We are going to do more this year because every other time we decided to set up systems to improve transparency and accountability. Recently, we created what we call the accountability framework under the office of the Vice President. For the first time, you have the Vice President chairing a team of people like, for example, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, who is the chairman of the Accounts Committee, is a member of that accountability framework, the Auditor General, the Commissioner of Anti-Corruption Commission, the head of the Procurement Agency, and also the Financial Secretary at the Ministry of Finance. Why we created the accountability framework was basically to encourage dialogue among key players that are promoting transparency and accountability. That has increased our score, our control of corruption score. In addition to that, we have been undertaking serious public sector reforms. For example, the public expenditure tracking system today in Sierra Leone, it is automated. So ministers don't sign paper. You have to go online, they have to make demands online. It has to be approved by the vote controller, approved by the minister, and then approved by the financial secretary. Goes to this you can do with your simple phone. So even if you sit down, you are a minister, you are out in France or in the United States of America, you can still approve payments in the ministries. So it goes on. So we are moving towards that automation, which has also helped. We have also automated revenue generation in Sierra Leone. In the port system today, we have implemented the Asicoda system. The Asicoda system has allowed for people to know whatever they are importing to the country, they will know the charges they are going to pay. And those charges will be sent to their phone. No sooner you go and fill the details of your merchandise or your container, automatically you receive a text. So we have been using innovation and technology extremely in Sierra Leone. The president came and decided to establish in the office of the president the Directorate of Science, Technology and Innovation. So that directorate has been helping ministries to navigate areas where there are problematic challenges in terms of public administration. Because if you want to deliver on the social sector, you want to deliver on productive sector, you have to have a public sector that is functional. And you know the public sector today has to use innovation and technology. So we have been working, and that is one of the success stories of our fight against COVID-19, because we use technology and innovation. Even in the last public examinations today now, students don't need to go to school, students don't need to go. Students just need to send a text message. When you send a text message and you put your admission number or your examination number, you get your result on your phone. So we have started that this year. It has saved billions of leons to parents who used to buy crash card or they move. So today, if you take a public exam in Sierra Leone, you don't need to go to school, you don't need to go. You sit down when the results are announced, you just have a text number, you send a text to your phone, and then you get the grade, and then you use that grade to go to your school. So we have been doing all of that. These are some of the governance reforms we have been working on. And all of this reform has no doubt attracted serious international appreciation for His Excellency the President. Today we are one of the leading countries in Africa that is spending on higher education. We are among the first 5 countries spending money on basic education. Today, we are one of the leading countries in Africa that is fighting against corruption, because our score keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And we are not relenting, because at least His Excellency always says, if you don't fight corruption, corruption will fight back. So as a result, we keep putting innovation initiatives to improve that. But more importantly, I just want to zero on our efforts we are doing to get investment. Like I said, if you have governments that are only going to focus on building roads, on building schools and building hospitals, you don't put in place policies to make your country competitive in terms of investment, it will be very difficult for you to get resources to support your social policies. So what we did, His Excellency established the National Investment Board. It is chaired by the President and co-chaired by myself. So that office is sitting in the office of the Vice President. So the daily activities, the operational and management activities of the National Investment Board is directly under my office. So that investment board is to enable Sierra Leone to be investment competitive, which means pass laws that will promote investors, that will promote investor-friendly environment. For example, we have initiated what we call the private-public dialogue that is chaired by the President. So like if you have the telecommunication companies will have the opportunity to sit down with the President to dialogue, so that if they are satisfied with the tax system, if they are satisfied with the tax system, if they want to expand, then the President use that opportunity to also get the telecommunications to expand in areas where there are poor network. And then also it enables us to be competitive with the West African sub-region, so that at least the way we regulate the telecommunication companies are not different from our neighboring countries. So the investment board allows us to pass laws to encourage a dialogue directly between private sector, businessmen. Also, I normally tell people that West Africa or Africa is not the birthplace of Jesus or Mohammed. No investor comes to Africa to seek divine benediction. They come to do business and to get profit. So you have to make your country competitive for them to come, because if you don't make your country competitive, they will go to the other continent. And the reason why a lot of businesses have been going to Asia is essentially because these countries are investment competitive. And the very important moves that countries like Ethiopia and Rwanda and Senegal have made to attract foreign direct private investment is because they keep making the country investment competitive. I gave you a simple example. had the opportunity to meet with the late Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi. We had very interesting discussion in 2004. That time I was working for the United Nations. I was in Addis Ababa. And one thing he told me that his focus from food production is to make food cheap. He said, because if you make food cheap, labor will be cheap. When you have cheap labor, then you attract investors. So that somebody knows, if I come to your country, if I pay people $100, they will be able to feed themselves. But when food is expensive, labor will be expensive. And when labor is expensive, and you have labor laws that don't favor investors to come into your country, investors don't go to your country. So these are some of all these blockades that His Excellency saw and established the National Investment Board. And that is a board that is very operational. Like I said, it is helping. In addition to that, we try to create an organic relationship between the National Investment Board and the Public-Private Partnership Unit that is also under the Office of the Vice President, because it is holistic. And that wherever we see private sector wanting to do business in Sierra Leone, if it is something that is of interest, the PPP is critical. Every committee we set up to deal with investors and to deal with investment, we bring in the PPP so that at least to streamline government interest, to see whether government is good. So now the new generation of mining agreement we are signing in Sierra Leone, the Sierra Leone government has an equity. Because Sierra Leone government don't have equity in mining companies, we just only depend on revenues and taxes. So we've passed a law now that will enable us to have an equity in it. These are some of the work that the public-private sector is doing. Madam Vice President, distinguished Senator, I don't want to bore you with so many things we are doing in Sierra Leone, but I want to take the opportunity to thank you very well, but to emphasize on the need for trade relationships. Yesterday we had a very interesting discussion with President George Weah. Weah reiterated his commitment to create a corridor that is coming. When the mayor of Monrovia visited me in my office with the mayor of Freetown last week, I told the mayor that since Liberia is going to prepare for the 200th centenary celebration in 2020, it will be interesting for Liberia and Sierra Leone to establish what we call the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, like Monrovia Freetown Heritage Foundation. Because these two countries have a very unique history. And these two countries' history is not the same with the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa. Today, these two countries are not in a position to market their history. Whereas when you go to countries like Benin, Togo, Senegal, where you don't even have a semblance of slavery and the return of ex-slaves, they market it better than us. And they get a lot of money out of it. So Monrovia Freetown Heritage Foundation, I asked them to establish it to encourage cultural exchange so that these two countries can share very good ideas and very good, interesting, innovative, creative ideas that can strengthen our relationship just beyond diplomatic and protocol relationship. The other area we are working on is to create a corridor. Just now I had the opportunity to meet with businessmen from Liberia that are already doing extremely well in the petroleum sector in Sierra Leone. You know that the Connex here bought Total in Sierra Leone, so they are going there. And then Aminata is already investing resources both in the upstream and the downstream of the petroleum sector in Sierra Leone. We have industries that are doing very well in Sierra Leone, that are producing oil, that are producing other foodstuff that we are exporting to Senegal, we are exporting to Guinea, and then to see how we can go down. And if it continues to go up, it will be very difficult to be dependent outside, because that is what we are doing in the area of food production. So my message here today is to continue to hammer that point home, that since our two leaders have reiterated their commitment to strengthen bilateral relationship, we should be engaged with the mechanics of how to see that process going through. The mechanics involving what kind of laws, what kind of agreement that we can pass to ensure that companies that are operating in Liberia can sell their goods in Sierra Leone, and companies that are operating in Sierra Leone can sell their goods. Until we are able to build a trade-driven economy, it will be very difficult. Because when we begin to do that, it is going to create affordable access and cheap goods for our people. And also, the House of Parliament in Sierra Leone have been very supportive. His Excellency the President normally gets consultation with the House of Representatives. Yeah, he even goes there himself, have meetings with them, because usually what happens is that in Sierra Leone, the House of Parliament, is a humble parliament. That is, the ruling party does not have a total two-third majority. So as a result of that, we are forced to do bipartisan relationship to ensure that bills are passed and all of these things. But what is interesting is that anytime the president travels outside of the country, he goes with a member of the opposition, he travels with them just to showcase that this is a country where the opposition and the government are working together, and then also to strengthen, because if an opposition member speak to a donor partner in front of a president, he has no choice but to praise the president, unless if the president is not here. Yes. So that is why he travels with the honorables and then sit down in front of them and look at them, and then the honorable will have no choice but to say he's a fantastic president. But beyond that, he has been engaging them. So there is a series of dialogue spaces, because we see the parliament as one area to strengthen political dialogue, so that the parliament, the legislature becomes a space, a very credible, dependable space for political dialogue. So His Excellency normally engages the parties there. We have 4 political parties there. He engaged them, he engaged the leadership, because it provides an opportunity for the honorable, the members of parliament, to tell the president what is working, what is not working. Although most of the time, majority of the discussions are around improving the welfare of the members of parliament, but it is good at least if it carries 60%, we can still accommodate the other 40% that is essentially around governance issues. So I want to thank you very much. I want to reiterate that this is the time, there is no better time for African countries to strengthen their relationship. There is no better time. We just established the Africa Free Trade Agreement, and I normally tell people, some of our colleagues that are working in the Secretariat and other heads of state that I normally have opportunity to meet, that if you don't develop the national capacity for production, we will end up using the Africa Free Trade, selling goods that are produced by foreign companies. You see the situation wherein Liberia will sell to Sierra Leone water that is produced by Chinese. I will sell to you medicine that are produced by Chinese. So what does that mean? It means that we have to take seriously the intricate need to build national capacity to have industries that can produce food, so that we'll be able to trade. And that is a message I want to leave with you. And I want to thank you very much for the honor you have given me to address you. And I look forward to working with you. We look forward to strengthening this relationship. We are open to share our experiences. We are open to showcase some of the institutions we have established to support us in the governance as well as in the productive sector. His Excellency, the President, yesterday also reiterated that need. And I want to thank you and use this occasion to thank you very much for all the support you have been providing to Sierra Leoneans that have been living in Liberia. They spoke extremely highly of His Excellency, the President, and of the government and people of Liberia. So I want to thank you very much. Thank you.
The President Pro Tempore of the Senate to please express our thanks and appreciation, and then we'll have Senator Snow present a small gift on behalf of the Liberian Senate.
Madam Vice President and President of the Liberian Senate, Dr. Mohamed Jalloh, Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, our very sisterly country, my dear colleagues, members of the delegation from Sierra Leone, visitors, members of the press, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I had the opportunity in 2018 to attend the inauguration of President Juldeh Jalloh, along with the President of Liberia and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. That morning, it was a very jam-packed stadium full of Sierra Leoneans and visitors from all over the world. You could clearly see that the new ruling party and the old ruling party, all the supporters jam-packed the stadium, and I saw from the beginning a good level of cooperation. I also want to use this opportunity, Mr. Vice President, for the hospitality you have accorded one of the wives of the Liberian Senate. One of our wives, Ambassador Nadina Wise, is the Secretary General of the Manitoba Union. And anytime she comes home, she praises the government and people of Sierra Leone for the hospitality. Those in the list, she's the wife of Senator Wise. Senator Wise, please stand up. And thank you for your kind presentation. There's a lot of things to learn from. When you were talking about hospital management, if I bring our grandson, the Wise was in Sierra Leone to visit his wife, and he made a presentation. He told us how he went to a specialist in Sierra Leone, and the facilities were so nice and so professional. So when you reiterated that, you will also send your people here for the exchange of knowledge. That's very much appreciated. Also follow your presentations on all the sectors you mentioned. But key is electricity and power. You indicated that when you came to power, in the government, it was 26 cents per kilowatt hour. Now you are pushing it to 16 cents. We have to do more here because here it's about 35 cents per kilowatt hour. So with the coming in of the CISG line you indicated, that will also help to reduce the tariff because, as indicated as well, power is very important to economic recovery. For example, one of our mining companies here that mining gold, they spend $25 million every year on power. And that is very prohibitive, very high. That will not be competitive. The only thing I want to stress on is that on the security sector, which you didn't touch probably by inadvertently, there have been, in recent times, instability in the sub-region, in the Sahel, and recently in our sister Republic of Guinea. And we are all concerned. And we have not heard about the Manitoba Union countries taking a stand or having a meeting to discuss that. I hope through you and our Vice President, our leaders in the Manitoba Union countries can be engaged so that we can understand what is their position. But again, let me thank you for your presentation and thank you for your visit to our country. Thank you for your visit to the legislature, and we will keep engaged with you for the exchange of information. Thank you.
I would now like to ask Senator Edwin Snow to please present our special gift to our special guest on behalf of myself, the President pro tempore, and the leadership and members of the Liberian Senate.
Your Excellency. Honorable Snow.
President of the Liberian Senate, Mr. President pro tempore, distinguished members of the Liberian Senate, our visitors, so Vice President, today is a very wonderful day that someone who has worked so hard for democracy in our sub-region, working from the UN, West Africa and the Sahel, before becoming Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, and knowing the work you've done in your country and the sub-region, we are extremely pleased that you take time off your busy schedule to visit with us at the Liberian Senate and share with us some of the great work you are doing in Sierra Leone. Some of those things were also captured in our own national agenda, but we know that we can still learn a lot from you as you intend to learn a lot from us. So today, Mr. Vice President, I'm very happy as your friend and your brother, and then the Senator of Liberia, to present to you on behalf of our Vice President, the President of the Liberian Senate, and my distinguished members, colleague members of the Liberian Senate, this token of appreciation for your visit, your presentation, and your time spent with us here at the Liberian Senate. And we continue to cherish and flourish a relationship that bonds our two countries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, members of the Liberian Senate, I would like to ask for us to excuse the Vice President, and I'll also accompany him. He has a few other meetings before he leaves. I wish you successful deliberations. Senator for Sino County, from Maryland, please find me after session, please. Yes. So what do we do? Yeah. Yes.
So can you just go back a little? Because the rest of the senators will come later on. So all the photographers just go back one step.